So before introducing Dr. DiMatteo, I'd like to acknowledge the land. So the Long Island campus of New York Tech sits on a larger area known as Pominoke, which was home to numerous indigenous communities, including the local tribes of the Metancox and the Merricks. So I'd like to acknowledge the land, the stewardship, and sovereignty of the native peoples and their enduring importance, even in this virtual event, to our work in the community here today. And now I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Anthony DiMatteo, former chair of the English department, who has defended the mysteries of literature and art at NYIT for 35 years. So currently an adjunct lecturer, Dr. DiMatteo is also an accomplished scholar of Renaissance literature and an active poet. His 2016 collection, In Defense of Poets, explores the way we imagine things when we speak for others or they for us. His recent chapbook, Fishing for Family, charts the experience of language from infancy to senescence. And some of his recent poems have appeared in the Connecticut River Review, the Cimarron Review, the MacGuffin, the North Dakota Quarterly, One Art, and the Galway Review. So Dr. DiMatteo lives on the Outer Banks with his wife, Kathleen O'Sullivan, who's also an alumna of NYIT, a pianist, a designer, and a fellow empty nester. So you can leave a trace at their e-tent, which I've posted in the chat, I think. There it is. Okay. So Dr. DiMatteo's recent third poetry collection called Secret Offices, which was published this year by Hudson Books, will be the main source of today's reading. So what's secret about it? Well, Dr. DiMatteo says he can't take credit for an office dedicated to the pursuit of beauty and fairness as a poet must be. He says no one knows what one is doing in such a position, which is a prerequisite for it. So please join me and welcome Dr. DiMatteo. Thank you for joining us at New York Tech's first Dean's Digital Cafe, and we are excited to hear more.
Thank you, William, for introducing me, and thank the dean and the college for allowing me to do a poetry reading after 35 years. I've been waiting in the wings a long time. You know, the title, you asked me to come up with the title, so I had to make it sound kind of scientific, and I said, I think it was Mind Over Brain.
Mind Over Brain, I like it.
And ever since that was accepted, I've been puzzling over that preposition over, you know, because prepositions are probably the most powerful words and the smallest, and also in some ways the most powerful words in the English language, because prepositions state how things are related: in, on, of, to, and over. And the idea of a mind over brain summons up this idea of some kind of a transcendent spirit, you know. And but I've been thinking about a phrase from the poet Miller Williams, and he's got a beautiful poem which ends talking about no one knows what's going on in a person's life where the spirit touches the bone. It's a haunting phrase, where the spirit touches the bone. It's just an amazing phrase that's been kicking around in my head. But okay, so I'm going to try to honor the mind over brain, and you know, now that we talk about neuroplasticity. I mean, just last week I was reading a book, Stuart Clark's, I think, yeah, the name of the book is Thinking with Demons, and this is he's describing, goes back to the 15th, 16th, and 17th century, and he tries to get you to imagine what it's like to think with demons. But now we talk about the brain's neuroplasticity, right? The neuroplasticity, the flexibility of it, its ability to change, right? Especially after disaster or trauma. We're able to change our neuronal structures through certain repeated actions and choices that we can make. So to kind of promote the poetic juices, I'm going to begin with a poem. You know, we all take surveys. You go to Home Depot, even the doctor's office will, you know, fill out the survey. It only takes 2 minutes, and we'll give you $20 or something. Well, if a poet wrote a survey, the questions might go something like this. The name of the poem is Interior Survey. Interior Survey. Have you ever wandered outside your fishbowl? Do you see others snorkeling inside it? Have you ever slept on the shoulders of a mountain? Have you ever seen a lion weep in its cage? Can you recognize the child left behind? How often do you trust your feet to find the path? Are you happy only if you don't think about it? Are you sad and don't know it? Are you longing to do what you never will? Are you longing to do again what you only did once? Will you do one day what you never imagined? Do you love others as other than yourself? Are we versions of each other in search of each other? Can we live together in this dream of now? Interior survey. So those are some things that if a poet makes you think about these kind of odd things. Okay. So that was published in a book called In Defense of Puppets. I don't know if you can see the frontispiece here, but I found this fascinating image by a Czechoslovakian artist, Marie Pavlicek-Worley. And she superimposed this figure of an angel over this writing, and it's actually in Czechoslovakian. And the writing is about how to create sausages with salt. So it struck me as an image of this idea of where the spirit meets the bone, so to speak. And then the title, In Defense of Puppets, it's this idea that you pick up a piece of writing. It could be a poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. It could be an essay by Sartre. It could be the New York Times editorial. It could be a letter written by your mom. How we voice things. To what degree, when we read something, are we making the person we're reading a puppet of who we are? To what degree are they making us a puppet of who they are, making us hear their voice in our head? Can you hear the voice of another person in your own head? I mean, can you really do that? It's more a question of, it's not so much a question of mind over brain, but how minds connect, right? Okay, so the idea of defending one's puppetry, so to speak, raising the awareness of it, and trying to reach others. The other poem I want to read is, I guess, more of a poem that I write. The survey was kind of, I wrote that maybe 15 years ago. And, to continue with this theme of how mind and brain, or spirit and bone interact, you think of the role of language. I mean, most of my poetry, I wouldn't say is about language directly, but it's always concerned about the impact of language on how we know things, right? We have a couple of mathematicians in the audience, and it's comforting to work with math, because you're supposed to come up with an answer, but frequently in life, I mean, that's very, very difficult to come up with some kind of an answer, because the words are the way we're thinking, and the amount of information we carry, experiences. Anyway, so this poem is about how words and things relate, and I used, when this got published in a nice journal recently, One Art. The name of the journal is One Art. They take the title from an Elizabeth Bishop poem. I decided to use the Latin res et verba, which just means words and things, right? Or things and words, actually, because that's what all these treatises used to talk about. There was words, and there were things. And now we kind of know there's this blur where you really can't kind of separate words and things in this neat little box-like way. Well, that's what they did from going back to really Cicero all the way up through the Renaissance and into the 18th century, words and things. So this poem is about words and things. Words can say things quickly, such as, my brother was murdered, or you have cancer, Or the old man down the block just died. We're lost beyond hope. Could be good things said. Just married. The storm went to sea. I hit the lotto. But the point is, what can last a lifetime or change one can be stated in few words. Though no words has it all that's involved. The way one can stand at a canyon's edge, a few miles deep, and not hear a thing. The fusion of near absolute silence in immense space staggers the mind. Just so, two words can say more than one can fathom. The earth itself tentative, surrounded by infinity on all sides. Words and things. Okay, so there's that one there. Philosophical poem. Then there's I've learned so much from so many people at NYIT in my 35 years from the students. I mean, I must have taught, I calculated this the other day. I think it's like 5,500 students I've had. And I dream about meeting them all in the mall one day and chasing me. I mean, it's an amazing thing. And, teaching is this, you just don't know how many people you've really impacted. And of course, all the professors that I've met and come and gone, one of whom is Valdis Kupras, who taught drawing there for many, many years at NYIT. It's an amazing legacy. And one of the things that he taught was he had students do this kind of odd practice. Well, he put the drawing class outside, and he said, "Okay, draw the space between the leaves." And so they were like, "Wait a second, draw the space between." And Martha's laughing about this because she knows Valdis used to do this. And so again, that got me thinking about what we call negative space is somebody else's positive space. But anyway, so I was thinking, what would be the equivalent in poetry to draw the space between the leaves, so to speak? So that was an experiment I would keep in my mind. It took me a long time to write the poem, but without really knowing I was writing this poem. But eventually it came, and I decided to write it in couplets. And the name of the poem is The Connoisseur of Silence. To live the quick of life, become a connoisseur of silence. Despite the reputation of a one-hit wonder, it has many styles. The silence the moment after a lover leaves lingers for years, like smoke over a pond, waiting for one's footsteps on a crowded shore. Not like the designer silence only the very rich can afford, laying on a remote beach. Hear it broken by the seagull's shriek. The silence that holds a mountain, one ponders only from the outside, in the way a child presses a nose against a window, eyeing forbidden sweets. An unforgiving silence rests in a bedsheet where a dead man last slept. It howls out of clear-cut forest. The wind chases after it, jealous of how sure it stands. But people have found it to fall, break, court, or loom, bring ice or beam with goodwill. A gentle one accompanies rain. Nervously, it nods in a parking lot. Music invites it to disappear inside the melody. Paintings doll it up, hoping to cast a spell. Stars and fish dwell in it. People weep into it or plunge off its edge. The silence I seek inside her mouth or folded in her hands. I want to use up all at once, but she alone can pour. When silent together, we enjoy the hum. Sometimes I think only lovers heed the long silence to come. It has an ocean's vista. I've also stumbled on it very, very small, caged up in a diary or wrapped in my mother's scarf. It loves dancing with leaves. It can hang after a question as if looming out of an abyss. A cricket throbs against it, down a trail, wandering off. There's a fearful silence people will fill with talk or flowers, or in prayer, attempt to cross over its trackless tundra. It appears off in the distance, not waiting to be heard. Now it's entered the room to steal the last word. The connoisseur of silence. Okay, so there's that poem. And this poem, I have to tell you about my good friend, Louis Navia, who recently retired. He taught philosophy at NYIT for what, 45 years. I mean, just a famous guy. And he wrote many books about the pre-Socratics. He also wrote about Socrates. And he also wrote about several books about Diogenes. I used to tease Louis that you're writing about a philosopher who burned all his works. You know, I was writing at the time about Shakespeare. We had like, you know, how many 40 something plays. And so it was very convenient to write about somebody whose works aren't extant. But Louis would come up to me and say, Tony, what do you think of the world? And I'd be like, Louis, look, I have pants on. I mean, come on. But he taught me not just the phrase, but he taught me the concept of a famous idea that we have from Diogenes, recorded in Diogenes Laertius, who was able to, look at some of the remaining legends about this philosopher who founded the philosophy of cynicism, right? And the phrase is cosmopolites, a citizen of the cosmos. And I'd say to Louis, I said, the Cosmopolitan, I mean, that's a magazine. Everybody knows about that. And he said, no, Tony, if humanity is to survive, that's the future. We have to create a reality where all the cultures of the world come together and think of themselves as citizens of the universe first. And so this poem is taking that concept in a very, well, you'll see, it takes it in a personal way. The name of the poem is Citizens of the Universe. At 17, I found out my mother was adopted. The purity of my blood proved so much snow in July. Thought old enough to know the truth, I looked at her with new eyes. She was told at 17 by her mother. My own shock gave way to hers. How she must have suffered. How she must have wondered. Half French, half German, was she an abandoned product of the Great War? I embraced her the way children do, not needing to know each other's names. Citizens of the universe. That's a poem published in a chapbook, Fishing for Family. And again, the funnest piece was something kicking around in my head for many years. It's created by a woman, Christina Bothwell, Bothwell. She's on Facebook, and she does all this incredible glass sculpture. And here you can see a figure of a human being inside a fish. And the book is really about our relationship. Well, it's that fishbowl of the mind, right? I mean, it's the way we survive through these interconnected realities in our situation. This poem is from the current book, my current book. Again, the cover is an image of a woman looking at a painting by Sonia Delaunay, an interesting photographer by the name of Mish Aminoff. And I was interested in the way the woman looking at the painting, the way her jacket mirrors the images of the painting. So it's kind of like this subjective objective transfer. again, where the spirit meets the bone, kind of, where the inner world meets the outer world, and there's an exchange. There's a similarity and a disconnect, right? It's that neuroplasticity always required of our ability to perceive. And this poem is, let me see, this is from, I had this student in, well, the end of 80s, I think 1988, 1989. And he was a very good student. You know, he was fiery, older student. And he said, "Hey, professor, you know, let's talk. Why don't we meet for lunch sometime?" I said, "Sure, I'm always in the cafeteria. Come by." And he did. And he showed up in an ROTC uniform, and he seemed a little embarrassed. And I said, "Oh, I didn't know you were in the ROTC." And he said, "Yeah, I know, you know, I'm kind of conflicted about it." And we talked about it. And he took another class with me in art of fiction, and I had a chance to see the way he interpreted the world. I mean, just a really smart young man who had a strong sense he had a strong conscience. I remember what Professor Nabi used to tell me: people without a conscience, do they even have a soul? And I said, "Look, Lewis, maybe that's too harsh, but this is a boy. His name was Craig Button." And I lost touch, as so all the professors here will say. You lose touch with these fabulous students, and you wonder what happens to them. And well, in 1997, I found out that Craig had crashed an A-10 Thundercloud plane out in Colorado, and it was his first mission with loaded bombs. You know, he had bombs, 400 or 500-pound bombs loaded into the plane. And apparently he took off from a base with two other airplanes, and he suddenly broke off from that flight, and they didn't know where he went. And then 2 hours later, he crashed the plane. Right? It took weeks to discover where this plane was, because it was in a remote mountain in Colorado. I don't know if you've typed Colorado. Some of those mountains, there's no road for miles sometimes. And he happened to crash it at a place called Gold Dust Peak, about 5 miles from a peak called Craig's Peak. I mean, his name was Craig Button, and a few miles from New York Mountain. You know, this guy was born in Long Island. He went to Wanto High School. And, you know, like he was setting up like a strange kind of symbolism. And so this stayed in my head for many years. I kept thinking of his voice in the classroom, his presence there, this interrogating mind, very, very moral, and, you know, a strong conscience, right? Conscience. All right, so the name of the poem is "If Your Own Hand Does Sin," to Craig Button. In endless talk across desk, you burned with bright ideas. Not power, but justice, Professor. Oedipus is its mere agent. The class was stunned as you rose to your feet, lifted by your ardor. Then one clear day you arrived dressed in uniform, embarrassed. We became friends over lunch and thought together about Nam, Vietnam. Years later, your name appeared, a missing pilot, his A-10 jet tracked to a Colorado mountain, Gold Dust Peak, as if a reminder of what we and our wealth become. Were you offering to us who dare to read a chilling allegory? I recall you told me your mother was a Jehovah's Witness. But no, the forest must hold you somewhere. I hoped. You know how to survive. Your laughter and your openness still greet me like a new day. Then a mystery grew clear. Spontaneous suicide, the official report. Was it a joyride? A contribution to world peace to crash the plane? Its 4 massive bombs never found. There's rumor lost love broke your faith. Your family's bereaved with no closure. Death has left your secret to us all. I know not its terms, but its wisdom, your smile and serious eyes, unmistakable, not subject to cover up. Blanket a forest to dry up the snow before anyone or anything can put out your life. More than 2 decades and 2 wars ago, your intensity is still educating me. Your question, a burning torch. To Craig Button. Okay. This is a, I recently moved to North Carolina, the Outer Banks of North Carolina. I lived on Long Island for many years, and we ended up here in North Carolina because we really wanted to live on Fire Island. But you can't live on Fire Island. You can't drive. It's not really a hospitable place to live year round. It's very difficult. So we try to, I had a retirement. Who can afford to retire in Long Island? I mean, I was paying $14,000 of real estate taxes every year. So we ended up on the Outer Banks, right? This spectacular barrier island. And, so this poem is about moving here and dealing with, really in some ways, a new culture. The name of the poem is Recycling. She looks at me strange when I yell out, "Mazel tov! You all right there?" She shouts back, thinking the shard of glass has struck me. I'm fine. It feels like something to celebrate when a bottle smashes. Oh, okay. I thought you said my eyes popped. No, Mazel tov. Jewish phrase for good luck. The look on her face tells me she's puzzled, never having heard the expression or wondering why I'd say it, breaking bottles or both. We're at the recycling center, alone in the dead heat of August. I'm a transplant from New York. She's a native of the Outer Banks. Yup, lived here all my life, she tells me, squeezing hard on her trash picker. I've picked up all kinds of stuff that got no place in our bins, from diapers to a bucket of dead fish. Well now, you've picked up a new phrase that deserves recycling, I tell her, with a laugh. Oh, that's right, my old stuff. Isn't that what you said? Close enough. And good luck to you. Oh, to you too. Recycling. This is a poem. I was writing a dissertation. I had the privilege of living in a group home as a group home supervisor for 10 years, and I was writing my dissertation at the City University of New York, and living with 10 boys, and some of them were really spectacular kids. If you knew their background, and you saw how sane and how determined to succeed these young boys were, it was totally inspirational. But unfortunately, a lot of the boys who were PIN's petition, person in need of a supervision, the petition would be taken out by a parent, and the boy would be placed in a group home because there was something at home. The boy was just running wild, or the parents, usually it was the parents who were more dysfunctional than the boys. But yeah, some of the boys succeeded. I'm proud to say, I think he's here. I've made friends with some of the boys from 25 years ago. And again, I lived in a group home for 10 years. Some of the boys lived with me for 6, 7 years in the Catholic Guardian Society. But it wasn't always, it was a lot of trauma that the boys were trying to overcome. And, the stress on me and the staff, and even the boys trying to make a family from all these strangers from all over New York City. I've written a novel, Homeboys, looking for a publisher. If somebody knows somebody. Kind of ironic, you can't find a home. The name of the book is Homeboys. Okay. So this was one experience I had, and this kicks around in my head too. Again, the idea of the mind, brain. You have all these images and voices. The older you get, kick around in your head, somewhat involuntarily, right? And how do you deal with some of this material, right? And so this is one instance of a memory. The name of the poem is Misery. He stood there at the door as if to say, it's about time. We had to let him in. Handsome and healthy, this blue-eyed, blonde Adonis of a kid with a judge in his pocket, perhaps in more than one way. The judge, too, would show up at our door, just walking in one morning to check on the boy, dawdling in his room, late for high school again. Why isn't he in school? The judge asked me. But I said, Your Honor, here I wear the robes. Still in my bathrobe. He patted the boy's head as he ran smirking out the door. He loved to show us karate moves, coming close to our nose. But when he clobbered his grandma on a visit, I took him back to family court to see the judge again, who told him, Robbie, you've got to behave better, sending him off to another group home. I never saw or heard the boy again, but the voice of his grandmother with its slight brogue on the phone, trying to cover up the beating he gave her when she found him in her purse, has never left my head for 40 years. Forgive him, she asked me. He knows no other but the hard way he's learned. Misery. So that's a recollection from the group home. Let's see. This one is another poem I tried to write for many years, but I couldn't even, I don't know how many times I started it, and then I would throw it out. And I've hiked a solo and with a couple with my stepson and a student, Jimmy Verma. We hiked down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. I went once solo and I once went on this other trip with my stepson and a student. And I was trying to write a poem about the Grand Canyon. You can't write a poem about the Grand Canyon. It's kind of written you already. So I figured, well, I would take a phenomenological approach and I would write how the Grand Canyon impacts your senses. So I'll let you see if it was successful or not. The name of the poem is Canyon Call. To leave the 21st century, wander off the road into the canyon. The silence is intimate, like a lover who has traveled a long distance and now wants you all at once. When you pause, you hear how loud your creaking pack has been, a rattle of coin in a quiet church. Where a Jupiter corkscrew into the sky, a white-gray bird with a brown back tilts his head sideways and flies off. You have never been so at home and this alone. You ask the universe, why have you kept my true life a secret from me? But you know there is no I in this place where 4 oceans have come and gone. You envy clouds, wanting to rise and float, to defy the fate that made you human. Life on earth began in such rhythms, yes? You think of your brother, lost along the way, the path down so much easier than up. Looking back, you see only your own footprints in pinkish dust that go the one way, like the river far below. Soon the sun will kneel to darkness. Light dwindles, and you cannot stay for long. Each step down drops you further back in time and cannot be retraced, though sure to be erased. You could turn into a stone, so alone, so at home, and no one would ever find you here. No more than a fish, its fossil or shore now cliff, each grain of sand unique and each alike, one of many and each one one? Is this how things stand? An eagle's cry warns, stay on the trail. At path's end, the river reveals its craft. Obsidian slabs rise, cathedrals 2 billion years old. When night comes, the stars sing praise. A pink scorpion crawls in your boot and leaves at dawn. How lucky one is to be alive. Walking back up, you feel left behind. You laugh and weep, want to tell the world what you cannot understand. alone at home before desert-like page. The canyon has claimed you, one of its own. Canyon call. Let me see this one here. Oh, this isn't this poem is a reflection on you teach all these students. I think I mentioned 5,500. Two other professors here have taught thousands and thousands. Poor Laurie's taught thousands. You probably taught half the Merchant Marine Corps. You teach all these students, and you try to do your best. But so many come and go, especially now. You teach online or hybrid course. You don't get to really meet students, even when it's live. They come and go. They come and go. They have such busy lives. Some of our students have full-time jobs or 2 part-time jobs, and it's just everybody's so pressed for time. How do we read and write? I mean, it can't just be the professors out there. But anyway, the name of the poem is Inside the Teaching Machine. We're just supposed to crank out the grades. It was also when I wrote this poem, it was an allusion to a book written by Gayatri Spivak, who's a American Indian scholar from India, who is one of the first translators of Jacques Derrida. And she also has a book, I think it's subtitled Inside the Teaching Machine. Right? Okay, so that's the poem, Inside the Teaching Machine. I look down my roster at names from all over the globe, and I can't imagine who these people are and how they've come to me. What can I say to them from the fishbowl of my world? I stand a talking machine before them, and I don't understand why they don't understand. I'm as afraid of my own ignorance as my students are of theirs, too shy or proud to admit or raise a hand. We know little of each other and a little more of ourselves. The biggest facts show how small we are, and yet they join us here, all together in the one room, where we laugh and fret under the dull music of some trees and the speckled light on our desks. I repeat myself so often, questions lose sight of the quest. My students look at me for guidance, but their mind has defined itself as more than a mirror of others that mistakes a shadow for a mensch. I teach them to read themselves, and they must lead me to listen. At times, more than a screen lights up the dark room where we think. Our talk stumbles on the unknown, there where we slumped in our seats. Why do we give one man such power? Does entropy impact thought? What have the 400,000 years our race has lived on Earth taught? A silence drains me to empty after the final test. It warns I often fail to know the person behind the student or held to account the one I answer to in my name. Inside the Teaching Machine. Let me see. One of the things I write about, and this is the Fishing for Family book. It's got it's got the different stages of life. It's got a poems about childhood. Then it's got poems about being a young adult, and then it's got poems about middle age, and then it's got poems about senescence. That's a nice word. I like senescence. I don't like old age. People say you're old. I say no, I'm senescent. It's nice. They have to look it up. They think I'm smelling my cologne or something. Senescence. It's a nice. It should be like an odor from Estee Lauder or something. Right? But the name of this poem is Works in Progress, and this is I don't know if it's a transcription, but it comes pretty close to being a transcription of a dream that I had. In the dream, I met myself as a child. I met myself as a child in this dream. Anyway, so here's a dream. In my dream, I am a child again, asking me where he has gone in the maze of possibilities that once greeted us each morning. I check my pockets for an answer, perhaps a photograph on my wallet offering a clue, but he chuckles when I show him. That's a picture of what we looked like then, but I am much more than a look. He gestures me to follow along, across the road, through a brief tangle of trees. a field of weeds, and then a string of new stores, which he points out were not there in his heyday, though here now in this dream I've given him. He leads me by the hand. I buy myself some candy as a child. Behind the stores, a few trees still hold on. We never went to that creek that ran through these woods. I wanted to go dance. Now it's too late. The water's gone under, the way my life's beneath yours. Then he vanishes. I turn around to see a set of tracks in snow that cut a straight path except where it breaks off to the woods. I look there. There's a bird in a tree, its head turned aslant. It ponders me and flies off. So there's that recollection of childhood, which I mean, it's so important to come to terms with the loss of your childhood. I'm almost 70 years old. I'm still kind of coming to terms with the loss of my childhood. I mean, I know Freud says that learning how to mourn your childhood is the most important act you have as an adult. And from some of the adults I've met, yes, I think he's right. Okay, we all have that child, and people say, "Oh, yeah, the child in you. You have the child in you." Well, I'm looking forward to my second childhood. I'm going to be 70 in December, so okay. Let me see. Well, I have a couple of. This poem is from Secret Offices, and the name of the poem is Big Eyes for Deep Time. Big eyes for deep time. I need big eyes for deep time because of love of you. And because for each breath we take, the universe takes one back. The flowers that line the yard bear a code for seeds more ancient than any god we could dream. We are dear because mortal. We know the Grand Canyon's oceans have come and gone, and our bay has emptied 1,000 times. Who can tell when or if there ever was a first or last? But there's no doubt there will be an end for us, and even to us, before death, my greater fear. There are those who leap from cliffs that don't know what it is to stand before your lips and start the long climb into your heart. I need deep eyes for big time because of the brevity of stars and because of this too human love we dare not waste. Big eyes for deep time. I'll read a couple of more, and let me see. This one here is, let me see. What is this one? This is in, this is in, okay. 20. This is the name of the poem is The One Truth. And I dedicate it to my wife, Kathleen. The One Truth. I was in Nevada and the road was moving under me. Or was I in the road in Montana as mountains fled? The wind rose and the night stumbled into the woods. You were on my mind, the way I had been on the road. I was along my way trackless before you appeared. I could not pass beyond your trace. What use to look to bluffs of Wyoming, those pinnacles of sand, where an open field let yellow flowers wander for miles? I found one of your thrilling routes under stars and no speed limit. I watched mountains rise up as if wearing the breath of God, and three rivers converge in a wild concourse of silver, headstrong for a distant sea. I beheld the moon ride above blackened valleys, and it wore your face, mocking my quest. In the far sweep of your current, I turned into a stream, seeking where I ended, and you began. The waters proved to merge, but the dimmer the woods, the darker the night, the more the one truth remains clear. I will return to you. The one truth. Okay, I'd like to finish up with a, I was on Long Island, living in Patchogue, about 200 feet from the Great South Bay, when that nymph of the sky, Sandy, the hurricane, came to visit our shores, and I stood at my back door and looked at the beach across the way, and the water was flowing the wrong way. It should have been flowing towards me. It was flowing that way. I guess that was east, and it devastated anything that stood out, and including the public gazebo that was at the end of the dock, which I could no longer see. And it rose, about 6 inches up on my tire, parked in the driveway. And I thought we were good, but until I looked at the home behind us, and they were flooded, and the home to the left and the home to the right, all the homes around us, we must have been 6 inches higher, like a pimple on a china plate. And then at 12:30 a.m., I looked at the tide chart. 12:30 a.m. was supposed to be absolute high tide. And as if Charleston Heston held his hands out and told the waters to go back. Remember, he played Moses. The water receded at 12:30, and it had gone up another 2 inches. It would have been in my kitchen. So it was an amazing. We live in a wilderness. We don't realize that until somebody pulls the plug, and then how are we going to eat? It's anyway. So the name of this, and of course, the waters of the Great South Bay suddenly had clams in it for a few years because fresh seawater came in, and it opened a breach on Fire Island, right? And I spent a couple of nights alone there in the wilderness. One night, I thought I was far from the water, but when I woke up the next morning, the water had come within like 6 feet of my tent. It would have woken me up with a big splash. My tent would have probably washed away into the breach. The breach was like this really wild place it looked like, I don't know, it kind of looked like this. The breach it had all these sand dunes and different, you go 4 feet to 8 feet to 2 feet. You couldn't not swim in it. The dunes were like this undulating topography, constantly changing, and just an amazing place. But now it's disappeared, and the Great South Bay is going back to all its problems with the brown algae and whatnot. But anyway, the name of this poem is The Breach. Fire Island National Wilderness. I mean, what a country, the national wilderness. What nation is that? The nation of wilderness. Fire Island National Wilderness. Gulls see land's end and cry out at the horizontal summit where bay and ocean merge. Any patch of sand, a lesson in near infinity. Old inlet, now new inlet, open wound in love with stars. I wander out to where a last tree has a few green leaves, and a dune of sand is left to shelter gray birds and a fox who walks round my tent at night. The clover leaf of his steps among the bare prints of mine. Just a few feet further east, and this little place of rest would have been scooped away and lost to the hurricane that came with waves, as did we. It's no breach, but an opening to the sky inside the sea. I hear it in the song of birds and the toss of and turn of dreams. We see its cut in our hands. The breach. Okay, so that'll be my my last poem. I'm sure it's not the last poem I'll ever write, but hopefully. And it's time. I want to thank people for coming and bearing with me with all these poems, and hope you enjoyed the. Does anybody have any questions or what they want to? I don't know. What do you want to do? Will we have a discussion or?
Well, if anyone has any questions, feel free to chime in.